right, welcome everyone to Aurora Meadows here in Aurora, Ohio. My name is Sam Allard, and I am one of the two authors of the Axios Cleveland newsletter, which I presume, since you're here, you probably know about already. But if you don't, indulge me for just one moment, and I'll pitch it to you. My co-author, Troy Smith, formerly of Cleveland.com, and myself, we write a daily newsletter Monday through Friday, the goal of which is to get you smarter, faster on the issues that matter in Northeast Ohio. So we cover politics, business, sports, arts and culture, things to do, and we do it in an accessible, fun way that you can read in under 5 minutes every morning as you're sipping on your coffee or whatever it is you do in the morning. So that's great. We hope you subscribe. If you haven't already, you can do so at axios.com/Cleveland. And that's my pitch, so thank you very much. Tonight you are here to learn about small business and entrepreneurship in the state of Ohio. And to help us do that, we've got a distinguished slate of panelists, the first of whom I am delighted to now introduce. He is the CEO of the Greater Cleveland Partnership. You know him. You love him. You may or may not pay your dues to him. He is Baiju Shah. Come on stage, Baiju.
I like that intro.
Yeah, Baiju, this is our first time on stage together. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You know, Sam told me not to wear a tie. He said this would not go over well. He was going to come in jeans. I said this is about as good as I can get. There are
tiers of business casual, I think.
I see.
And business casual for the businessman, and then business casual for the journalist.
That's right. There you go.
Now, we're going to get into small business, of course, but since I've got you here, Baiju, I cover politics, and I just have to ask. Your organization, GCP, made waves in May when you endorsed the Cleveland Browns' move from the lakefront to Brook Park, which resulted, of course, in all sorts of consternation from Mayor Justin Bibb, Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb, and Cuyahoga County Executive Chris Ronayne. And I'm curious, where do those relationships stand? Are we talking? Are we keeping cordial from a distance? What's going on there?
Well, first and foremost, we're very close to the Browns. We're excited to see multiple billions of dollars of investment come into our community, both from the private sector and the public sector, for an asset that is going to be transformative. We continue to work very closely with the county and the city. We continue to embrace them as much as they want to be embraced to our mutual objectives. All of us are working to grow our community, to make it more prosperous, and we look forward to continuing to work with them.
Well, that sounds great. I presume then it's still your position that the facility in Brook Park is a net positive for the region.
It's not only a net positive, it is actually happening. It is absolutely happening. Don't regard everything you read in the media.
Including the Ohio Department of Transportation and their recent objections?
Including the fact that the air traffic control tower is 100 feet taller than the stadium that's been proposed. And somehow that seems to be okay with both the FAA and the ODOT and the airport, right? So it is absolutely happening. Do not pay attention to all the mediatainment, as it's sometimes called. It is going to happen. We are going to move forward, and we're also going to have an extraordinary lakefront because of it.
Fair enough. Well, we'll leave it there. The Browns and pro sports in Cleveland are, of course, big business, but we're here to talk about small business, and you're an expert at both. So maybe you could help set the stage for us, Baiju, and just give us, as we say at Axios, the state of play. What's the landscape of small business in Northeast Ohio today, August 26, 2025?
So, and I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize two of my board members that are sitting here in the front row that are also very active in our, not only the board of GCP, but in particular in our small business advisory committee called COSI, with Tim and Fernando right here. So a couple things just to set the stage. Small businesses are actually really big when you aggregate them across not only our region, but our state. So 43% of the people that work in the state of Ohio work for a small business. It's about 2 million workers work for small businesses. There's over 1 million of them here in our state. And they're all different types of small businesses, right? So when you think small businesses, we often, in our minds, go to Main Street. We think about restaurants, we think about retail, we think about sort of the services that we might go to, the home services that we use, the electrician we can never find when we need one. That's sort of what comes to mind, but it's all types of businesses that are small businesses. They're manufacturing businesses. Another fun fact I got from the Small Business Administration is 86% of the businesses that export from Ohio are small businesses, right? So it's all types of businesses that are small businesses. And they are essential to not only our region, but our state, but also the growth, in part because there's a growing trend. If you know people that are in Gen Z, oftentimes they don't want to work for a large business. They want to work for themselves, right? Whether it's the Shark Tank culture or whatever it might be about Gen Z, they increasingly want to be entrepreneurs, working for themselves, setting their own terms. And that's an important thing for us as a region to recognize and embrace and figure out how we help them be successful as entrepreneurs.
Well, the number of the small business owners and entrepreneurs I know are pretty anxious about the economic climate. But before we get to the challenges, let's build on this momentum you're talking about. What are some of the tailwinds that you've seen, the kind of the positive conditions economically that small businesses are experiencing?
Yeah, I think as a small business owner, when I talk to a lot of them, it's never not a challenging time to keep a business operating, right? There's always something going on, right? If you've been a small business owner, you know what I'm talking about. Large businesses, small businesses, if you think about just the last 5 years, right? It's COVID, it's supply chain, it's labor challenges, it's geopolitical situations, right? Now it's tariffs, it's taxes, so you're constantly adapting. The tailwinds are it's getting easier and easier to be a small business because of technology, right? Technology is an ultimate leveler of small business to large business, access to information, access to markets, access to suppliers, all of it gets a lot easier because of technology. And that's sort of becoming an advantage for small businesses. The second thing is the ability to be nimble, right? It's harder as a large anything to make pivots. Small businesses need to pivot to survive, and they can make decisions very, very quickly to adapt to changing situations. So again, there's an opportunity there. There's a lot of opportunity emerging out there. Like, I think one of the things that I love about entrepreneurs is they're eternally optimistic. They're constantly focused on what's possible. They understand that there's hurdles in front of them to get to where they want to envision, but they always find their ways around those hurdles, right? There's not that a woe is us mindset. They don't have the time to be woe is us. They just have to keep figuring out how to maneuver across the minefield to build their businesses, to continue to realize their dreams and to support the employees that they've got as well.
Two of the hurdles that I hear most often are access to capital, small businesses, and workforce challenges, just the kind of the educational attainment and general workforce level here in Northeast Ohio. Are those on target, or are there other ones that you're familiar with?
Well, I think there's a couple of, those are absolutely on target, right? No business has enough access to capital when you're a small business. I don't care what type of entrepreneur you are. Banks never lend enough. They never lend at the right terms. There's not enough equity capital out there if you're looking for equity investors, because equity investors, there's only sufficient capital if you personally raise your money. If you don't, then you're like, we don't have enough sources of money for capital, right? It's just sort of the reality of any small business. So there's never enough capital that's out there, and it's never easy to find as a small business owner, right? It's because if you don't come from friends and family that are going to be able to lend you the capital, right? It gets hard because you've got to go and try to find your way into other people's friends and other people's families to raise that capital, or you have to convince banks to look differently at your business plan, look differently at your balance sheet, look differently at your prospects, and that is an arduous task. And so people slog through it as they're trying to build businesses. Talent is super hard, I think, as a small business, because no one knows that you exist. Right? You're competing against Sherwin-Williams. You're competing against Cleveland Clinic. You're competing against these big places that, if you're a young person looking for a job, or if you're an older person looking for a career pivot, you're going to go to places where the brands are there, and you're going to start to search for them. You're not necessarily going to go to Fully Promoted with Fernando's. You're not looking for that opportunity, and yet small business owners have got to find that same type of talent. And so this is a big challenge, I think an omnipresent challenge that we haven't yet even got to a leveling of that playing field from a technology perspective. It is something there. We have to do a better job of talking to labor or workers of why it's important, or why it's exciting to work, I should say, in small businesses, because it is a different feel. A lot of small business owners treat their businesses like family. It's a very different relationship, with the team members than it is in a large organization. And a lot of people are looking for that. They're looking for that type of work environment. They just don't know how to find it. And so that's something we certainly need to challenge. But, The other thing that I think is challenging small businesses broadly is, this constantly uncertain policy environment. They're navigating it, and there's some great heroic stories, and I know the congressman will come here and I think make it completely clear what's going on in Washington, D.C. in terms of the outlook. That's what I'm expecting, at least, from the congressman. But it is changing, and you've got to be paying attention to what those changes mean in terms of challenges, but also opportunities, and it can be nonstop.
Sure. You mentioned both Cleveland Clinic and Sherwin-Williams, two of the region's largest employers. I'm curious about the region's research and development assets, quite a few of them. We've got incredible hospitals, universities, NASA Glenn. How do you see that trickling down to the small business or entrepreneurial environment? How does that shape the ecosystem?
Yeah, so a couple things there. I mean, I think the technology assets are phenomenal, the research institutions, but they need to be translated into the commercial marketplace. Right? That is not the job of the Cleveland Clinic. It's not the job of NASA Glenn. It's not the job of Case Western. It's the job of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs that can collaborate with these institutions to take that kernel of an exciting idea that started and make it something that's actually commercially useful. Right? I've spent a lot of my career in the healthcare space and worked closely with our institutions and have watched exactly that happen, where individuals come in, they see the research that's being done by a clinician or by a scientist, they say, that's really interesting, but now I need to build a business around this. And that takes everything we just talked about, capital, takes talent, takes a lot of patience, perseverance, to bring that product all the way to market and to create sort of the jobs and the impact that one has. And so that's the opportunity that exists, I think, for small businesses to collaborate with research institutions. And one important thing to point out that the federal government does support is small business innovation grants. They come out from all of our agencies, NIH, DOD, NASA. They're ways for entrepreneurs to collaborate with organizations and to commercialize these technologies.
Let me ask you quickly about artificial intelligence, which is disrupting virtually every industry, certainly ours. Do you view it as more of a opportunity or a challenge for small businesses? And are you seeing any cool examples of how local small businesses are using it?
So it's a huge opportunity. I think of technology as something that every business needs to leverage at all times to operate, to innovate. So let me give you a couple of examples. We were polling, the audience, our team, about how are people actually deploying this in small businesses. So one of our fellow board members, Cheryl Perez, who actually is the chair of COSI, has created basically an AI-enabled customer management tool that has cut down the number of questions that she personally needs to answer from about 50 a day to about 5 a day on her time. So there's productivity, right? These are the types of things that we should all be thinking about. Another entrepreneur, great example that I like to talk about is a gentleman who has named his ChatGPT Lisa, right? So, it's a relationship he's now developed with his
I
AI.
hope not romantic.
I think there are HR rules against that.
Okay.
Right? In any type of organization shouldn't cross those barriers. So this guy's an entrepreneur. His name's Richard Brown. He started a company called Proof Culture. And Proof Culture is in a business that I didn't even know existed. That's what I love about entrepreneurs. They find niches that exist that I had no idea. What he develops is basically sneaker care products. And he markets sneaker care products because a lot of people have apparently sneaker collections. You and I talked about sneakers. I don't have sneakers.
I don't.
But people have sneakers, and they have to take good care of these sneakers, and they have all sorts of products to basically keep these sneakers in tip-top shape, so when they want to use them, they've got them. Well, when the tariffs situation started to change, he was sourcing a lot of his product in China, right? All of a sudden, the prices for those products went up dramatically at the beginning of the part of the year. He's like, this is not tenable because my customers aren't going to pay that. So he started asking ChatGPT, Lisa, where can he find the same products in countries that aren't subject to those tariffs? And he found his way to suppliers in Colombia, and I want to say somewhere else in South America. And he immediately shifted his supply. So he's starting to use AI as kind of a strategic supply agent. Other people are using it to really do customer insight interviews, right? Personas. They're creating personas to say, what would these personas want in terms of my service or product offering? And so I think of AI, we're just scratching the surface of its potential. It's incumbent upon all of us, whether we're small business owners or just team members in organizations, to figure out how do we use this, right? How do we use it to our full potential? Because the power is extraordinary.
We're running short on time, but let me ask you this. Let's imagine I'm a 24, 25-year-old entrepreneur coming out of grad school. What's your pitch to me to stay and start my business in Cleveland as opposed to someplace like Austin or Seattle or somewhere else?
Well, first of all, I think we've got an incredibly supportive small business community. We talk about this at Cozy all the time, that it's entrepreneurs helping other entrepreneurs, right? Having that network. If you're starting as an entrepreneur, you know about this much of what you need to know to actually run a business, right? You need to lean on many, and I think there's a willingness in our community to be mentors, to be helpful guides, to be connectors to entrepreneurs that are learning or starting any type of business. And come and see us, we'll make sure we get you connected to whether it's a retail operation or a manufacturing operation, whatever it is that's relevant. The second is the cost of doing business here. We know, just like the cost of living here, is much, much lower than in Austin or a coastal community. That makes a huge difference when it's your own capital, right? It's your own capital that you're investing in these businesses to pay employees or to develop products. Lowering that cost of capital is critical. And the third is we actually have a pretty good and stable business environment here. I think the state of Ohio continually improves that business environment, and particularly for entrepreneurs. Recently, in the last 2 budget cycles, we've removed a lot of the small business taxes and reduced the levels of taxes. Those are important considerations, I think, as reasons why entrepreneurs can succeed and thrive here.
Fabulous. And before we exit the stage, I just have to ask, you think all day about the economy at a macro level. What about on the smaller level? What are 1 or 2 of your favorite small businesses locally?
So I like to eat. We all like to eat. On the Rise, if you haven't been to that bakery.
Fantastic.
It is the best bakery between Paris and San Francisco, right? It is unbelievable, and we spend a lot of time there. Zhug is our favorite restaurant.
Come on.
Zhug is just spectacular, right? So there's a lot of great businesses out there, lots of places to enjoy and eat, and support our community.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Baiju. I appreciate the time. Fabulous conversation. You have a great evening.
Thank you.